call and speak longer after. Okay, so welcome everyone to our first Massins Facebook Live discussion. Today's discussion will include myself, Simon, and Oscar from Massins. Oscar's one of our senior technicians. I'm one of the business managers here. And we're on a call with one of our clinical and technical partners, or two of them I should say, from Singapore and Malaysia. The prosthetic company and the Otto prosthetic company in Singapore and Malaysia. Feel free to ask any questions you have during this call or this discussion. It will go for about 10 to 15 minutes. And this is our first of what will probably be many Facebook Live chats or discussions. So we're happy to answer any questions you have regarding any of our products and services. So today we're talking about Click Medical's Revolock lanyard system, and we understand people tuning in may have different experiences or no experiences at all with Revolock lanyard. Revolock lanyard system is a suspension system that can be used in prosthetic sockets to connect to the liners on below knee and above knee amputees sockets. So we have Oscar here with a lot of different parts connected to the Revolock system. As you can see, he's holding a black socket, carbon socket with the Revolock lanyard distal connection here. We've got a flexible inner which you can decide to add into the system with the Revolock lanyard connection, and we're going to go through the considerations that you should make when fabricating a Revolock system. So before going through the different steps in Revolock fabrication, I thought I'd go through the main features. So we know that it's a suspension system, and it's a lanyard that you can connect via a distal connection here. You can connect this to the bottom of your locking liner, whether it's a BK locking liner or an AK locking liner. It's got a thread. It can be used for upper limb applications as well. Just note, if you're using it with an upper limb locking liner, you will need to use a smaller threaded connection, which you can purchase from Massins, or depending on where you are, from your distributor or directly from Click Medical. In this socket you can see that there are RevoFit panels. We're not concentrating on that today. We're concentrating on the lanyard system, Revolock lanyard system here. And the dial for the Revolock system in this socket is connected at the top here. You can see there are two dials here. One dial's for the panels, these three panels, which is a RevoFit system, and we've got one dial here at the top connected to the Revolock system. We usually get a lot of questions relating to dial position or dial placement. That's really up to the user as well as the clinician or clinicians. So have that discussion. Make sure you consider the different factors when a patient is wearing their socket, whether they want to put it on the medial side or the inner side of their knee, or below their knee if they're a below knee socket user, or on the inner side of their thigh if they're an above knee socket user. So that's one thing, dial location. Okay, do we have any questions popping up so far? No? Okay. If we don't have enough time today in the 10 to 15 minutes to answer any questions, we're happy to follow up after the call or after the video to answer any questions. We have great support from Click Medical in the US as well. So if we're not able to answer any questions, technical or clinical, we have great support from them, so they can help out answer any questions. Okay, so moving on to specifically the fabrication procedures of Revolock lanyard. If you don't have access to these screenshots now, don't worry. We can send it to you guys after this call or after this video. It's available on the Click Medical Revolock section. It's basically fabrication instructions, what to consider when you're laminating the socket. There are 2 files, one for a laminated socket and one for a check socket. So we're going to focus on the laminated socket considerations or the fabrication considerations today. So step 1, apply the attachment post to your model. So what Oscar has in front of him is the flexible inner and the laminated socket. What you want to do is attach the lamination post to the distal end of the model.
What it look like this? Can you check?
Change it?
Next photo. This.
Yep. So just moving on to the next photo.
Flatten distal.
Yep, so you want to flatten the distal end of the socket, as you can see in the picture here. On to the next one.
Drill the holes.
Then you want to drill the hole
Of course.
at the distal end of the cast. Yep.
Put a adhesive for the lamination post and hold it secure.
Yep, so add FabTech to the hole that you've drilled, and then add the attachment, as you can see in this picture, and hold it until it's secure. Wait for the composite adhesive to dry.
Yeah, in this part is a bit putting the PVA bag.
Yep.
But you can use more release or the baby powder to help you to slide the PVA bag over the cast.
That's a good point. Some people have some issues sliding the PVA bag over the cast, or in this case, in the picture, you've got a flexible inner. You can use talcum powder or baby powder to assist with that.
Yep. Tight.
And then you want to tie the distal end, as you can see in the picture here. Next step is to apply a bead of silicone to prevent resin from leaking into the housing.
It should be bead. Make sure it is applied bead of the silicone, not just smear it and apply it.
Yep, that's a good point. So Oscar just mentioned, make sure you apply a bead as per instructions, as you can see in the next picture. This is important to get the right contact and the adequate contact between that section, that black section of that piece onto the end of the cast. Okay, and then now you want to replace the bolt and be sure to fully seat the bolt to the housing.
The reason why to put the bolt after cap the distal housing, because we don't need to have the air pocket inside the housing, so it might have chance to get the resin inside the distal housing.
Yeah. So yeah, if there was any clarification required for that, yeah, we can clarify later or now, or we can say it another way.
So now put the
Yep. Okay, so moving on, now you want to clay the bolt head.
so that we be able to position the bolt itself, and when we go to the next step, we clean up and attract the bolt easier.
Yep. Okay, so this is step 3 in the instructions, materials layout. You can see the different layers in the picture based on the different colors. The inner layer is the PVA bag, then you have Nye glass, and then you've got the carbon layer on the outside. And then on the distal section, it's got an arrow saying to pull the fabric tight. You want all the layers to be pulled over the lamination housing and tie off against the grooves in the housing. Yeah.
Just like that.
Just like what you see in the picture here.
You just do it as a normal layout that you normally do. Nothing special with it. Like 2 fiberglass and 1 carbon. That should be enough for the first layers.
Yep. And moving on to step 4, installing the tubing. You can choose to do either a 2-stage or a single-stage lamination. Regardless of what you do, it's really the square diagram on the right. Square diagram on the right here that you want to take note of, right? Which is A, connect the spring and the tube to the lamination housing. B, slide the Teflon tube into the lamination housing fully seated. And C, sliding the spring over the Teflon and into lamination housing to lock tube into place. Be careful not to kink the tubing and pack clay around the tubing prior to lamination.
Yeah, but we recommend to do the 2-stage of lamination.
Yep.
What does it look like?
Yep, that's what it looks like. And you want to grind down to expose the bolt head to extract the bolt. Yep, so that's just showing how to grind down the socket to expose a bolt head.
Take it out.
This is a diagram showing what tool to use to take the bolt out from the socket.
Insert a spring.
And now this section is the insertion of the spring into the section where the bolt was removed.
Yeah, the easy way to do is put the Teflon into the housing like this. Make sure it goes right to the end there. You can see the end, and then you use a permanent marker. Mark it a bit. It's about deep 1.5 centimeters. So to make sure you mark it, and the easy way to do is to put the spring in there. After you put into the housing, got it in, you just turn around following the shape of the cast, for example. That should be fine, and then you just secure with the electrical tape. Next bit.
Yep. Okay. Step 5, move on.
Yeah, that'll be passed.
Yep. So use this as a reference. This video, or this picture, I should say, as a good reference when you're attaching the Teflon tubing and the metal cord at the bottom there.
And also you can see on the end of this stove, we have to add the clay.
Yep.
To secure that hose, not have any pocket in there.
Yep, that's a good point. So in many discussions, we've had some people who have experienced resin going inside that hole. So it's very important to apply the clay correctly to prevent resin entering the system.
And of course inside the tube as well before you put it.
And yeah, that's a good point. Oscar mentioned to add the clay into the tubing as well to prevent resin entering the system during lamination. Yep, this picture shows fab tape adhesive being added to the proximal section of the socket. Yep.
And to make sure that under the dummy have to be flat. You even have curved a little bit. Better to flat them with fly or
This section.
sandpaper to make it flat. Just a little bit, make it.
Yep. So just to reinforce that, below that dummy, that socket, that outer surface of the socket should be flat.
Yeah.
To allow that dummy to sit in nicely. Okay, moving on to the next picture.
Yeah, we still do a adhesive under the spring and around the hose. Adhesive.
Yep. Yep.
This is second.
Yeah. So Oscar mentioned it's important now to add the composite adhesive, 60-second, which is a 2-part urethane adhesive.
Under the spring and
under the spring
and around the tube that we put the clay on, so to be second safety for resin to leak inside.
Yeah, to prevent resin leaking inside. Yep.
Now we have secured the tray blanc with super glue.
Yep. So that in that picture you can see that's just super glue, and use that to secure the Teflon onto the roughened surface of the socket.
After everything done, just bond connection hardware.
Yep, bond connection hardware after that's all done. Just going back. Oh, yep, so you can see on the distal end of the socket there's some hardware, a pyramid adapter. So you can bond that with the same 2-part adhesive or whatever adhesive you usually like to use in your workshop to make that airtight and strong. Okay, step 7, laminate the outer layer. Full length nigh glass over tube and the base, and add a layer of carbon over the base plate to fully lock into place. Completely cover the housing, tube and base with material to lock into place.
And also after the night glass, if you want to have reinforcement on the pyramid, you can put unidirectional across that 4 legs of the pyramid to make it a bit stronger.
Yep. So that's a good point. If you do want to make the distal connection stronger, you can add unidirectional tape to strengthen that connection distally. Okay, so we've got a picture here. That's just the lamination layup after you've added the Revolock system and you're ready for lamination. Okay, so we don't need to go through the lamination procedures. That's just usual standard lamination procedures that you're used to in the workshop. And after laminating, you want to grind down to expose the dummy, as you can see in the picture here. So just reading through the instructions from Click. Step 1, you want to grind down to expose the dummy. Step 2, you want to remove the dummy screws. Step 3, you want to insert the extraction screw into one of the screw holes and tighten down to lever out the dummy. Step 4, you want to trim excess tubing flush with the carbon frame. And step 5, you want to grind down excess carbon, leaving a 3mm tall lip.
To mention with a step 3, the screw hole that you're going to put an extra screw in there, you have to manually make it yourself. They're not provided in the pack, in the kit. It looks like this.
Yep.
So whatever it is.
So that part that Oscar mentioned, yep, that screw.
You can just get any screw that's bigger than normal and just use that to export the dummy.
Yep. All right, so this picture shows